I'm Olek Novak, this is Chasing Cars, and today we are in Korea checking out the new electric Hyundai Inster small SUV. Now, you might be wondering, why do we have a camouflage version here with us today when the vehicle was revealed in full at the Busan Mobility Show a few weeks ago? Now, yes, it was, and make sure to check out our full walk-around review of that car. But we were also a part of a small group of global media who, before the reveal of the vehicle, got to take the electric Inster on a drive on public roads here in Korea to see what it is like to drive. Could it be a small, affordable electric Korean game changer? Let's find out, but before we do, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell below, and give us a follow on TikTok and Instagram for more daily content and behind-the-scenes videos. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car.
Brought to you by
Budget Direct.
The Hyundai Inster is essentially a reworked and electrified version of the petrol-only Kia Picanto-sized Casper, which has been on sale in Korea since 2021. In Korea, the Inster Electric will be known as the Hyundai Casper EV, but that's not the case in Australia, where it's going to be called the Inster and where we will only get the EV version. It's going to slot in below the Kona Electric, which starts at $54,000, to become the brand's most affordable EV. Aussie pricing and specs haven't been confirmed, but we are anticipating a compelling starting price, potentially beginning with a 3, as well as both standard and long-range variants when it arrives locally in early 2025. In our previous walk-around review at the Busan Mobility Show, we took a look at a non-camouflaged version of the Inster outside and inside. So make sure to check out that full video for our initial impressions of its features, level of space, and practicality. But today is all about getting a sense of how this vehicle drives. Okay, so we've started our first international drive of the Inster, and so this is one of the final pre-production prototype versions of the Inster. So it's very close to what we're going to be seeing on the road, but hence you're seeing all the camouflage and maybe a few exposed wires down here, which you won't be able to see on camera. So as for initial impressions, we'll break it down through all the different elements. In terms of the steering, look, we've been driving it up to around 60, probably maximum 70 kilometers an hour, which realistically is what this car is designed, the kind of environment it's designed to operate in at urban speeds around town. And overall, it feels pretty decent. It feels quite natural to drive. The steering is light, it's direct, easy to use. So initial impressions pretty good in that regard. In terms of the ride and handling, so this prototype version we're driving on now is spec'd with the biggest 17-inch wheels. Now, it's maybe a bit crashy. You can see we're going over a few speed bumps at the moment, but at the same time, we don't know what the Australian specifications of the vehicle will be. The 355 kilometer WLTP range is based on the 15-inch wheel versions, and Hyundai have said that they're planning on bringing 2 grades to Australia, so we'll have both the long range and the standard range, and likely have 2 grades on offer as well. So similar approach to what Hyundai has done with the Kona electric vehicle. But overall, it's decently comfortable. I guess one of the other things you will notice about the vehicle is, while it is, Hyundai calls it an A-segment vehicle, we know that the wheelbase has been increased on the original Casper on which it's based. So the wheelbase is actually, it's not too much smaller than a Hyundai Kona. So inside, when you're sitting here, it doesn't feel tight, it doesn't feel cramped, it feels decently roomy. There looks like there's an ample amount of space in the back. Visibility is also quite good, owing to the more upright shape of the vehicle too. Now, while I mentioned that the ride is a tad firmish potentially on the 17-inch wheels, and we haven't driven one on the 15-inch wheels, it's not an uncomfortable vehicle. In terms of handling, haven't really had a chance to test that out properly in the driving conditions that we've been doing, so I'll have to hold out initial impressions there. But at the same time, we have been, as I mentioned, driving it around town. It's a very effective, easy vehicle to drive, and a very natural feeling vehicle to drive. It's decently quiet as well, and in terms of the power delivery, that seems pretty smooth, pretty linear. Now, it doesn't seem like an overly fast vehicle. It's quoted 0 to 100 times a 10 seconds plus, depending on which powertrain specification you go for. But around town, it definitely seems like it's got plenty enough power for doing the daily runabout thing as well. Now, in terms of efficiency, so we've been driving it on about a 2-hour drive here in Korea. We are currently delivering, based on the 33 kilometers that we have driven so far, 7.3 kilometers per kilowatt hour. So that's currently how we're looking looking in terms of efficiency, and the quoted efficiency is just over 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers WLTP. So in terms of other elements that you've got here as a driver, so it's a very familiar cabin from a Hyundai perspective. You've got the familiar 4 dots on the steering wheel. You've got two 10.25 inch screens in front of you. The one in front of you has a nice, easy, simple layout, very familiar for a Hyundai vehicle too. Now we can play around. We've got a nice little button here, easy to navigate, where we can switch between the drive modes. You've got Eco, Normal, Sport and Snow, so you can shift into Sport if you want to liven things up a bit as well. And of course, we've also got the paddle shifters. So familiar to Hyundai drivers, you'll be able to use those to navigate between the different levels of regeneration for the vehicle. And of course, you can set it to the maximum regen for iPedal mode for that one pedal driving experience as well, if you are so inclined. So we've just switched it into iPedal mode, and that makes, and you can noticeably feel that the vehicle braking pretty strongly. So we're going to take our foot off the accelerator and we're slowing down relatively speedily to that bump that we're navigating now. All right, so we're navigating slightly more windy roads, but again, there is a strict speed limit here which we're adhering to. So like I mentioned, we can't fully exploit and test out the car's handling dynamics and such, but look, realistically, based on how you're going to be driving the car, it accelerates the speed really nicely. It feels pretty progressive in that regard and natural. The steering, yep, it feels pretty decent, and it's just a really ultimately quite an easy drive. All right, so we've made it onto a slightly faster road, so we can get a bit of a better sense of the Inster at slightly faster speeds than we were doing just then. So the ride, yep, there's maybe when we tackle some bumps, it's still maybe just a tiny bit crashy navigating those, again, on the 17-inch wheels. In terms of how it feels pretty good getting up to speed. Again, you're not going to be thrown back in your seat. Sorry guys, sorry. There you go, so we just navigated a bump that I didn't foresee, so that's my bad, but the Inster recovered. So there you go, an extra tick for the Inster, -1 for myself as an evaluator. All right, we're getting to a red light, so what I'm going to do is we're going to put it into sport mode. We're going to come to a stop. I'm just going to see how it gets up to speed. So that was with my foot fully planted to the floor. It took a second to respond, so again, it's not the fastest vehicle. You're not going to be pushed back into your seat, and it was a bit slow to get up to speed, but realistically for what this vehicle is designed to do, not necessarily a criticism in that regard. But it is definitely an observation that you won't be setting any land speed records in the Inster. The brakes feel pretty good. Just noticed a bump at the last minute. Came to a speed quite nicely. I guess it's a small vehicle, not as much weight to stop, but the brake pedal felt pretty good. Traveling a bit faster now, and this feels pretty good at speed. It definitely doesn't feel out of its depth. We're going 80 k's an hour at the moment. Relatively quiet. We're about to approach a speed bump, so again, testing out the suspension. But overall, while it is a step down from something like a Hyundai Kona or something like that, it still feels like a decent vehicle. It's a relatively planted and substantial vehicle, despite its diminutive size. So overall, in terms of initial impressions of the Hyundai Inster, it feels like quite an easy runabout to tackle the urban drive. So in terms of what it intends to do as a vehicle, based on initial impressions, it seems like a vehicle that'll do a pretty good job. Now, obviously, we need to be able to take it on a drive on Australian roads, navigating some bumpy Australian roads to test that out properly, do a proper electric range and efficiency test, and also be able to test out its handling capabilities at a bit higher speeds until we can deliver a final verdict. But on initial impression, it's quite an exciting vehicle, I think, that we're going to see in Australia, just from the perspective of offering more small and affordable electric vehicles, a segment which has so far just been dominated by a diminishing number of vehicles, and in the electric space, pretty much only Chinese electric cars. So, a very exciting model to come up for Hyundai. Stay tuned for further updates.
along the way.
So those are my first impressions of the Hyundai Inster small electric SUV. The real test will be when we can take this thing for a drive on Australian roads. But in the meantime, let us know what you think of the Hyundai Inster. Is this something that could tempt you out of affordable Chinese electric cars like the MG4 and the BYD Dolphin? Let us know what you think in the comment section down below. While you're there, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.